HB's in the house.
So we have our guest tonight
Yeah.
is
Oh, that looks cool.
can you guys mute your mics, please?
All right.
We have winemaker Russell Fromm, who started Herman Story Wines in 2001 with just 7 barrels of wine. The winery is named after his rancher, logger, swapper, banker, philanthropist, teller of tales grandfather. I got that off the back of the bottle. Russell produces rich and luxurious full-body wines. He works with top-tier vineyards in multiple growing regions between Santa Barbara and Paso Robles. Among the vineyards Russell sources fruit are notably Bien Nacido, Shadow Canyon, Larner, and Whitehawk. Herman Story Wines have iconic monikers such as Smash City, Bolt Cutter, First Time Caller, Nuts and Bolts, and Late Bloomer. Their labels are unique and highly recognizable. Russell also puts out some of the most interesting and entertaining market materials. He's second to none in that department. And I'm going to share what I believe is a Russell Fromm quote just because how I read it in the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. These are no nonsense, balls to the walls wines that are not for the faint of heart or the pinky raising set. Now let's welcome our guest tonight, Russell Fromm.
How you doing? That is it. You stole all my thunder. You answered all the questions. Now we're done.
You and me both. Interview's over. Well done, Mike.
No, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this, and I love Paso, and I love that people are interested in Paso. I started back in 2001 in Santa Maria. I was in Santa Maria for 10 years, and said, well, I started hanging out a lot in Paso and hanging out at Villa Creek, and when it was kind of small. It's amazing how it's grown in just 10 years. And I said, you know what, I got to move my stuff up here because Santa Maria is not the best area for wine and getting people to you. And Paso seemed to just be growing so much. And I just enjoyed being up there. And I live in San Luis Obispo. I'm in my house right now here in San Luis Obispo. And I kind of live in between because I get fruit from different places in the south, Larner, Whitehawk, and all that. And I get places in the valley here in San Luis. And then most of my stuff comes from Paso. So it made sense. And it's a lot easier to commute to Paso than it was Santa Maria.
Russell, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
Just to make this easier on you, we want to hold back on some of the wine business for a second,
right?
And then give the group an opportunity to learn a little bit about you. And we know that is an interesting subject in itself. So if I can just take a step back and just ask you a little bit about some of the stuff that you did pre-wine and a little bit about you.
Okay.
So before you got into the wine business, what were you doing then? What led you up to it?
Yeah. So okay, I was going to Cal Poly and I was working at restaurants. My mom was a very accomplished home cook. And I started kind of getting into cooking and getting into food. And I loved restaurants. I worked at a restaurant when I was 15. I had to get a worker's permit, work at a restaurant up in the Bay Area in Danville. And before that, I lived in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, all over the country, and never really was like saying, oh, I'm going to be in the wine business. And came down to San Luis Obispo to go to Cuesta Junior College here. And then I got into Cal Poly. And when I got to Cal Poly, they were really big on pushing internships and learn by doing. It's kind of their motto. And I said, oh, well, I like that. I like to work. And so I worked at an Italian restaurant for 6 years, all through the 6 years it took me to get through college. And in Pismo Beach called Rosa's. And I worked there. I started getting into wine there, and then the owners of Tantara, they had come in, and that was in 1998. They had come in. It was Bill and Jeff back then, and they said, "Hey, we have this little winery on Bendocito. We make Chardonnay and Pinot Noir." And I had before that, I had I should have gone back into that. I had an internship in Monterey. My first internship was in Lockwood in 1997, and it was like 3-4 months. I worked there during the harvest and everything else, and then I came back to school and then met Bill and Jeff at Rosa's, and so I started working for them for 98, 99, 2000, and then in 2000 I worked at a big custom crush place in Santa Maria, and that's really where I cut my teeth. That's when the Larners, the Larners would deliver their own fruit. The owners of White Hawk would be there. And I was working with 20, 25 small producers and helping them with their wines. And then my main job was working for the main winery, the house winery, where we were doing 4,000 or 5,000 tons, trucks all night long, just go, go, go. And I liked both sides. I liked that. That was a lot of work. And dragging hoses and doing all the shoveling and everything else. And then I got my romance on the small side, where I could kind of learn what not to do and what to do. And it was free. Unbelievable. There's nothing free in the wine business, I'll tell you that. I told my landlord, "You're the first person I have ever known that made money in the wine business on day one, renting to me." And that is the truth. And so at this big custom crush place, we had all these people bringing wines. They were trying to make Pinot Noir in Burgundian style in Pinot Noir in Santa Maria, picking at 22 bricks. Not my style. But I learned really quick that that's not my style. And I did it on someone else's dime. And it's crazy how, I heard an interview with Robert Mondavi. He'd been in the wine business for 32 years. He said, "Oh, I've only been in 32 vintages." And I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy." Yeah, you're right. Or I don't remember the exact year. Maybe it was more than that. But I've been in it for 27 vintages. This was my 27th vintage. And every vintage is different. And it's crazy. But I learned so much at this place. I was there for 5 years at Central Coast Wine Services. And then I got hired away at a couple of different wineries. In 2000, I took advantage of the internship swap program, where they would always hire interns at this winery from New Zealand or Australia. And I was the only guy that go the other way. And I can understand that. The dollar was, I think the Australian dollar is 52 cents. And so I worked for half the money. But I got a great experience. I worked a lot of hours. And so many hours that's when I came back in 2001, I had some coin in my pocket, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to start a little winery." And I got some fruit from East Paso, Meeker Vineyard. And I had really no business being in the wine business at that point. I said, "What am I doing?" Then the next year, I met the Larners, and I started making Larner grapes. So I made two. I said, "You know what? I'm going to spend my money on higher end grapes and make less wine." And that is still what I do now. I make less wine, but I pay more for grapes. And I always joke around saying, better egg makes a better omelet, better grapes make better wine. And lower yields, all the things we do. We shut the water off. I fight with vineyard managers about trying to go for crazy extremes all the time, but that's what gets the ripeness and the kind of wine that I want to make. And I learned that again back to Central Coast Wine Services. A big influence of mine was Michael Bonacorsi. He was making big wines, and he was a sommelier. He's the late great Michael Bonacorsi, but he was a sommelier at Spago, and he made me feel real cool. He would wine me and dine me down there, and he would always tell me, "Hey, not ripe enough, not ripe enough, not ripe enough." And that's kind of my tagline now. Everything, all my quotes of how a vintage goes are on waiting. I allow myself like 1 or 2 mulligans a year, and it's never because I waited too long. It's always because I picked too early. And I say, when in doubt, hang it out. I go through reigns. I push, push, push. And I'll also say, if it wasn't my winery, I would be done a month early. But it's my winery. I take the extra risk. I take the risk of a reign. I push, push, push to make as best wine as I can. And that's that. So
Well, I like the characterization of the one that Mike read on the back of the bottle earlier too. These big, luscious, unctuous kind of wines. It's funny. I've encountered people that feel like that's not their style, and I respect it. For some, it's not. But I can tell you, every blind tasting I've done with one of your wines in the lineup, your wines win, regardless of what people think they like going into it.
well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny how that it's a funny one. The wine world's a funny place, and there's room for all of us. And I find that if there's some people that make big ripe wines that make that go over the top. They leave them sweet, or they leave them. I can't make a sweet wine. It's not what people want, but I do push the limits, and without going over just at the precipice, just about to go over, but not there, and make it refined and try to balance it. And I really do. I focus on the mouthfeel. Number one thing in the wines that you'll taste tonight, if you're trying the wines that are part of the list, or part of the what is it, the bolt cutter and the late bloomer. It's all about mouthfeel, how the wines flow, and that's how you're drinking them, and that's how I want to make them. I want to make them good. And I joke around. Another line I have, and you're going to hear a lot of them tonight, is don't tell the other winemakers, but if you make it taste good, they're going to want to buy it. And that's what we're in. We're in the business to get people to buy wine. So,
amen. I don't know if you're Bobby Flay fan or not, but it reminds me a lot of that he's just big on flavors, and that's kind of what I think of with your wines too. They're just always big on flavors and delicious.
Thank you. You had given me a list of questions. You want me to stick to that, the rapid fire?
Nope. I'll just keep working from it. Let me back up to one of them. I think a lot of people here probably do, and we're just kind of coming off harvest, and we hear it every month. Takes a lot of beer to make great wine. It's well known, I think, probably by many on this call. You're a Coors Light guy. I don't know how many people on this call know that you're also a master beer blender, and have won Firestone's beer blending contest. How many times? 3 times? 3 times.
3 times.
Well done. Is there, other than Coors Light, is there another favorite non-wine adult beverage of yours?
I explore the beer world quite a bit. I've been really into Pilsners, and I used to be Coors Light and West Coast IPAs, and I've kind of ventured off into Pilsners of late. And then occasionally, I was talking to we were doing blending today and tasting all the 22s and 20, and just kind of figuring out what we're doing for bottling. It was quite a big day at the winery, and we were sitting out at the table with lunch, and one of my guys said, "Oh, I love Negronis," and I said, "Well, have you ever had a Boulevardier?" And they go, no, what's that? I said, well, that's a Negroni with bourbon, and that's kind of my cocktail. If I go into the cocktail world, there's sometimes where I'm pushed, not very hard, but I'm pushed into having a cocktail, and Boulevardier is is where I would go.
Boulevardier, am I saying that right?
I joke with my wife all the time. I'm like, Boulevardier or something. It's Boulevardier, I do believe, and I'm probably butchering it. But normally, any bartender or anybody making one of those knows what I'm saying. Yeah, it's what is it? It's sweet vermouth, Campari, yeah, and bourbon. And and if you take the bourbon out and you put gin, it's a Negroni. So that would probably be my choice there. And then during the day, I'm a big iced tea fan. I love iced tea too much sometimes. I drink too much coffee probably in the morning as well. But those are my drinks of choice, and I try to drink a lot of water. And then I do a lot of hiking, a lot of camping, a lot of cooking. I say another thing is winemaking is, or I'm a cook, not a chemist. And again, it's all about taste. I know the chemistry. All I really need to know, I tell people, is the bad chemistry. And if I know the bad chemistry, then all the rest is good and it tastes good. And so it's we steer clear of the bad chemistry. I avoid that as much as I can, and those and I enjoy my favorite wine. I make a wine called Witness Protection. It's a Chardonnay done in a Burgundian style. Yeah. And I call it Witness Protection because I don't want anybody to know that that's the style. I'm never going to go that route in all my wines. It's just not my thing. But I love white Burgundy, and I'm really trying to land like a Chablis or a white Burgundy kind of style wine into my portfolio, if you will. I hate that word, but portfolio of wines. And it's been selling pretty good, and I enjoy making that. But if I were to drink any wine, I would drink white Burgundy, and then I'm probably the number one consumer of Herman Story. Like a bad drug dealer, I get high on my own supply, but I like what if you're a cook at home, you're going to cook what you like. And if anybody argues with you, is well, go somewhere else.
Right.
But I drink a lot of Herman Story, and I drink a lot of younger ones. I want to see what the customer's tasting right now. I know most of the people are drinking them right away, and I like fresher wines. I'm impressed when somebody opens their old wine, but a lot of times, sometimes old wine, people think they're good because they're old. Are they really good? I think 3 to 5 years is probably the sweet spot on all my wines. I probably push it now. In the last 10 years, I've gotten way better on purification and not purification, but the maintenance of topping them, keeping them really sound. So when they go in the bottle, they're ready to drink now, which is tough, and they can age.
Yeah.
And I have my tricks for that. Most of it is just I do all each barrel gets modified. Each barrel gets any kind of fine tuning a couple months prior to bottling, so that when I'm bottling, I don't do it in the tank. I do it individually in the barrel, and it's a lot more work. But I can tell you that it gets through the bottle shock and gets bottle ready and drinkable right away. And so that's one of my secrets.
What's the type of maintenance that you can do to a barrel?
The topping, number one, and then adding. I don't want to get on my soapbox of no sulfur wines and all this. I add as little sulfur as I can, but normally it's sulfur is a purification to make sure the wine doesn't go south. Keeping it ice cold, number one. Keeping it topped. I top every 2 weeks. A lot of wineries every 2 months, once a quarter, once every 6 months. They turn the barrels or whatever. Every 2 weeks I top. Little tiny bit, boom. I'd leave no air. And air, any kind of space in the top of the barrel is an opportunity for bacteria to flourish. If there's no air there, and the barrel's completely topped up into the bung, then there's no opportunity for bacteria to grow, and it really does hinder any kind of problems. That's one of the big secrets. And then ice cold. People come into the winery, and unfortunately, my tasting room's small. You saw it in the video. We have to push people into the cellar, and they freeze their ass off. And I get blankets and stuff like that to keep them. And I say, if we don't keep the barrels, I keep everything at 57 degrees. If we don't keep the barrels cold, you won't want to taste the wine. So that's a big thing that we do there.
So barrel air is a wine error.
Bingo.
That we could say.
Right.
Russell, what was the first wine that made a lasting impression on you that wasn't yours?
You know, I saw that question, and I'm going to tell everybody I saw some of the questions, so I've kind of prepared my answers. But Claude, I love this wine. Claude Truffier was a real, other than Mike Bonacorsi. Mike Bonacorsi was probably my number one influence. He was the only one. When I worked at CCWS, he made his wines there. He unfortunately passed in an early age, and he was the guy. And that's why I say he's a somm. And the new wave somms are like, they have this issue, and this issue is alcohol. They don't like alcohol, but a good somm, I think, should respect the fact that have a broad perspective. Have some wines for people that like big wines. Have wines that they get stuck in this, it's over 14%. I don't want to taste it. Come on, give me a break. You're not the only person with a palate in your restaurant. There's other people that want other things. So it was back in the day, he was a somm at Spago, one of the best restaurants. Back in the day, Spago was number one, still is great. And so he made these big ripe wines. And I was like, man, this every time I taste those wines, I said, this is what I want to do. This is the wines I want to make. These are the wines that I like. And there was a few others. There was Clos Me way back in the day. There was, not many. Jaffers was a bit. He was making these big ripe wines. He's kind of toned back a little bit, I think. Ojai was making these big runs. A lot of people have toned back, and I have said, well, I felt the pressure. You feel the pressure of the somms and everything to come back and not go so big in the wines. But I was like, this is my style. This is what I like. I'm going to make what I like. I go big, and that's kind of where I'm at. But to get back to your question, sorry, I get on my soapbox of somm life. But Claude Truffier was a wine that stayed on the skins for a long time. It was a big ripe Syrah and from Southern Rhone, and they'd leave it on the skins in a tank forever. And the skin tannin it was really complex, and I really like this wine. And I said, that's kind of cool. And so back, I don't know, in maybe 17, 18, and 19, I did an extended age Grenache where I put it in a wood tank and I closed it. I kept the skins and the stems in there for over 400 days. I did 419, 426, 440. And I did it for 3 years. The wood tanks, they were pretty much, they're real thick staves, so they didn't oxidize. The wine didn't age as fast as it did in a regular smaller barrel because the wood's always breathing. This is, we know this in the winery, but sometimes consumer doesn't know that the thickness of a barrel really matters on how much air is transferring and how fast it oxidizes. Like Bordeaux, in Bordeaux, they put those wood plaques in the barrel. That's just to keep the head from bowing out or in. It's for strength, not for anything else. But they put their name on it because in Bordeaux they have real thin barrels. They want it to oxidize and the earth and get rid of that earthiness. Well, I got these big tanks because I was preventing oxidation in these extended age wines, and this is Claude Truffier was in these big tanks, and I kind of got inspired from this.
That's what inspired the 400 series, for lack of a better expression.
Yeah. But no one's ever, I mean, they were going, you hear of 30, 60 days, extended I'm going to watch myself.
Maceration.
Extended mastication. No?
Maceration?
Maceration. Yeah.
Maceration. Yeah. I don't want to say masturbation. I'm really trying not to say masturbation. So, sorry. It's a late night Zoom. But so that, and I did it in a 500 liter barrel. I did it actually the first time I did it. I popped the head out of a small barrel and just tried it, and it got oxidized too much. And then I did a 500 liter, and I was like, it's oxidized too much. But I knew what the problem was: oxidation. And so I said, well, I'm going to do these thicker tanks, and they're really cool. I had them in the winery, and when you saw the video earlier, I have a very small place, and the air conditioned space is a premium. And a wood tank, it was not movable, and every other tank I have is on a skid or wheels or something, and so the wood tanks just weren't really functional. And oh, there we go. Oh, sorry, my cat.
I told you this is all new, Russell.
Oh, there you go. All right, so
Yeah.
this was our last day of pressing right here, and that was Cabernet, and that's our press, 11 years old, and it has a big bladder inside that just has a cycle where it inflates, it presses. There's a hard side of the drum and then a slotted side, and the slotted side is where the wine comes out, and it's pretty simple. Just gravity forces it to come down, and then we pump it into barrels. And so, sorry, I have a cat that gets on the counter and I really can't stand it.
Right.
I'm sure he'll get in the camera here in a minute. He's a wild.
What's your cat's name?
Ravi.
Oh, Robbie.
Yeah, I mean he's named after Life of Pot. We got him from the pound, and his name was Ravi. And so I've had German short hairs forever. They don't like cats, and I have an 8-year-old daughter who loves cats. So once our last German short hair left, we got a cat. Now I have 2 actually, Ravi and Pie. And so
Nice.
I love them.
So
You love them more than the dogs?
I'm thinking about, I had 2 German short hairs. One got to 14 and one passed away at an early age. And I was like, man, it's, I'm sure there's dog lovers in the Zoom. You have a certain shelf life for loss. And it's like,
Yeah.
gosh, I can't lose any more dogs. So yeah, and I have an 8-year-old, so she loves cats, and so I say, and I love her, and it doesn't matter.
Well,
They're easy.
You nailed that one. The loss of a dog. You can't do that too often. It's
yeah,
No.
that's tough. That's tough.
So I'm a softie.
I guess the conclusion is that it's easier to lose a cat.
Right. Cats have a longer lifespan.
Sorry, cat lovers.
No, they just have a longer lifespan, Mike.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the key is, my wife, she convinced me. She goes, "Hey, get 2," and getting 2 is the way to go. Especially like if we leave town, we have our neighbor come by here. 2 cats, they can hang out. One is lonely, so they convinced me to get 2, and I was sold. Easy sale. I'm easily sold on, but yeah.
So I got a question for you that wasn't on your list, so you're not going to be prepared for this one. But I saw on your Instagram that you have a wicked uppercut. Where'd you get that from?
Yeah, it's video. It takes a long time to do the video, and
That was
that's
well done.
it. That is
was well done.
I have been swimming. I've lost like 18 pounds, and in the last 6 months, I like to swim. I've done all the different exercises and everything else, but swimming is I really enjoy it. I try to swim 3-4 days a week, and so and the uppercut, I remember doing that one. That's it's a lot. It takes a long time to do that. We did a Price is Right video one time we do all kinds of crazy stuff, and you dig around the internet, you can find all kinds of stuff. Nothing too raunchy, but fun stuff. And my wife and we did this Price is Right. I was doing a sweepstakes to my wine club where you got a free ticket to 2 people could fly to the winery, or you do dinner at the winery and choose one or the other. And we did this. I was Bob Barker. She was the Barker Beauties, and we put the raffles in the press and rolled it and everything else. And I thought, oh, this is going to take like 2 hours. It took 9-10 hours to film this thing. All that stuff, but it's and sometimes I think I'll look around and I say, I cannot believe that we're doing these crazy things at the winery. Like we did a 6-pack. I'm often the ones that really go are the ones that I'm wearing less clothing.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing too risque, but like, show us your 6-packs. That was one of my favorite inserts, where we had the wire fence of the vineyard, the deer fence. We pushed our bellies up. We had to add another wire in there so that we could really make 6-packs, because the wires are pretty spread apart. As you go up higher, down and below, they're really tight, so the smaller vermins can't get in there, but then it starts to widen up in the top. And so we had to add wire, and I've done all kinds of crazy stuff. And I have fun. That's what I tell my crew. The best line for all the fun we have, I say, the better wine we make, the more fun we can have. And that's it. If we make good wine and people are buying it, we can have a lot of fun. It's just that's it. And I have the best job in the world. I've been doing this, like I was saying, I've never done anything else but work at wineries and restaurants. And I worked at restaurants. I was in college for tips, but I've never had, my true profession has always been in the wine business. And I still, if anytime I'm like, I'm tired or whatever, I say, hey, there's somebody, and I have interns that come. I have 5 of them, and I started doing this little intern program, and it's people from the corporate world. I have an Iron Man. I have a guy, that ex-produce salesperson, and they started working during the harvest to get out of their job. And they would tell me, I have one guy. I'm sure he's on the Zoom. I can't see everybody. I can see a few, but he gets teary-eyed when he leaves. He says, this is the best week of my life, because he works in a corporate job where it's just pressure, and he can come and I just drag him along. We go to the vineyards, I taste, and now he's been with me so long, I'll taste the grapes, and that's it. I taste every grape before we pick it. I don't believe any vineyard manager telling me anything. I go there, I'm on the road all the time, going to all these places, and I taste, and I'll ask them. I'll say, hey, what do you think? Are these ready? And the pressure's on. and he says, I don't think so. Good choice. We're gonna wait. And so it's fun. It keeps it, and it's company. And I'm driving all over the place, and I can learn something. It's fun to learn something about someone else's world, to really put yours into perspective. And I'll tell you, I have the best job. I'll have people go, oh, with the Dow selling for $1 billion and all these other wineries in Paso selling, they're like, what if somebody came to you and sold? I said, well, the right price. But at the same time, what am I going to do? Work at my buddy's winery in the tasting room, retire? No, I'll work on my own. So it's a great ride, the wine business. And I hope that, and I really appreciate all the people buying the wine. That is the true, like, all the club members and all the nice texts I get and nice emails I get from people saying, hey, I tried this wine. We did this. We had it at this occasion, that occasion. It never gets old. It always is super cool. And it keeps me going on the days where we're late nights and we're wet and we're just tired. And this harvest, we did it in about 35 days. Normally it's 3 months.
You made a reference at the start of the call about just wrapping up harvest, and assuming all that dust is settled now, what are your thoughts on this vintage? How did it turn out?
The quality was very good. Often rewards the people that wait. I waited through a little rain event, and I waited and waited and waited and waited. And I've never had a vintage where I didn't harvest grapes in September. And then we didn't harvest till October 9th. And so if you think about even 9 days into October, every day, every hour, every minute during the life cycle of these plants is critical. And so we're going that deep into the cycle. And I was just saying, man, I was telling my employees, during September, they were going on camping trips and all this other stuff. I said, hey, it takes the same amount of hours to process these grapes. So just get ready. And I was warning them, and they're young and they didn't care. They got excited. Halfway through harvest, I was like, hey, I hope you're not getting tired because we're only halfway through. We're going. They're like, yeah, bring it. They take the leaves and they put it under their eyes and they get real crazy and love it. And I'm old and tired. And so I have to pep them up. And I think I do at least. And so we did it all in 35 days. I had to borrow fermenters from people. I had to borrow pickering bins. And I have a couple of my buddies that I have a buddy, Xavier, who used to work for me way back in the day. And he's awesome. He's from France and he makes a wine called Union Sacré. He makes a lot of orange wines. And he ferments the like Gewürztraminer and different things in fermenters as white wines. So he does that early. So I'll ask him. I know he has fermenters for me because people joke with me. I have people that make very Burgundian wines, and when they tell me they're starting harvest, I say, "Oh, I better order barrels from France." So they all joke with me, "Are you done with harvest?" And I just sat and sat and sat. And it's very easy to get trigger finger and say, oh, I'm going to pull these grapes. But no, we'll find a way. If flavor is number one, I'd rather have 2 barrels of amazing than 10 barrels of just okay. And so I just waited and waited and waited and waited. And then
Is
all
your
of a
ultimate
sudden,
picking decision just based off how you're tasting the grapes, or are you pulling any science into it too, or combination of?
I really should. If I was making more tonnage, I would have to start at some point. On a vintage like this, I would have to start early because I just don't have the space to take it all. And I often look at it like a restaurant. You have your early diners, you have your dinner rush, and then you have your late night diners.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at this was a buffet. This was like, we brought 30 tons a day, and it's a totally different every year is different, and you have to act fast. You can't just sit and winemakers love to sit. I only saw one other winemaker, Larry Schaefer, who I love, and I haven't seen in a while. I saw him in here, but he knows you can't take everything at once. So if you have a certain amount of space, but I knew I had friends in my back pocket that had space that I could get. I could borrow a tank. I could borrow fermenters. I could find spots to ferment. So it enabled me to push and not worry about. I just worry about flavor. That was it. I didn't have to worry about. And I know some of my friends that make 5,000 tons, and they were having to pick stuff early. And when you're doing that style of winemaking, you hope that the middle of harvest is right where the grapes are perfect. And so you're picking a little too ripe, you're picking a little too underripe, and you hope that everything balances out in a perfect world. And so this year was odd because it was like low and slow. And those, I often say, are the best vintages because it's like braising meat. Low and slow, you can take, and the longer the vine hangs on to the grape, the more concentration, the more depth, the more color, the more, and it's a lot like anything that you're growing in your garden. Sometimes the last pick is the best. They're dark, they're on the berries especially, and something that's sweet, that sugar is the best peach is the last peach, the best everything is the last one. Well, that's what I'm waiting for. And that's what and it's hard. It's really hard. You see all your buddies picking, and then I stay off the damn social media when I'm doing that because I just can't. I'm like, oh god, everyone's picking. My wife just can't hear it anymore. Like, oh, everyone's picking. Everyone started 3 weeks ago, and here I am sitting here doing nothing. But I know I'm gonna have to pay for that in time, in hours, but at the same time, the quality was amazing. And I was the last one out of most vineyards, and the rains didn't come. People were saying October was going to be rainy, end of October was going to be rainy, early November. This was on the, everyone likes to talk about the weather, and I always have an eye on it all the time, especially when it's hot. I have when it's really hot and I see heat coming, I have decisions to make. Am I going to pick, or am I going to wait through the heat? And often I have big waves. Like I make a wine casual encounters. It's all co-fermented. And people are like, well, how are you picking all the grapes at the same time? Well, there's some Mother Nature has forced me to pick a bunch of stuff at the same time, and I have the opportunity to co-ferment it, meaning I'm taking a Mourvedre, fermenting it with some Grenache, fermenting it with some Syrah. And when you do that, there's no turning back. You're committed, literally tank committed, pot committed to that. And then we take all those and we make a blend, and it's exciting because each wine is different. The profile is completely different. You don't know what it is until the end, but you know, when I tasted grapes long enough, when the grapes taste good, I can almost taste the wine at the end. and so that's how I do that. But this harvest, 35 days was a lot. We did buffet style. I got back to the buffet. Normally on a harvest, I'll be like, oh, this bin gets this much yeast, this and this and this. But the buffet style, we actually use different color tape for different days on the bins. So we know that, all right, orange was October 15th, and the red tape was October 19th. And that way nobody mixes it up. And then each bin gets 1 sprig of broccoli, 6 ounces of filet, 1 scoop of potatoes. Next one, sprig of broccoli, 6 ounces of filet, potatoes. And we become a factory. And it doesn't mean it's not romantic. It's just the way, because I waited, we have to change our game. And on different game, it's different on different vintages. We only have 5 tons to deal with. Oh, we can kind of be laissez-faire and just do our thing. And then the next day we take a little bit of grapes, and it's kind of, and I don't know what's better. I don't know what's more tiring. At the end, I'm like still tired. And on the long, slow harvest, I'm tired, and I don't know whether it's good. This year, my joke was, do you want your mom to say, hey, do you want to take the beating now, or do you want to wait till your dad comes home? And my mom was the disciplinarian, so take it now.
So, look, I get that you can turn off social media and not know what's going on. Well, then you're still probably driving through and seeing what's going on with others harvesting. But what about at home? Is your wife starting generally before you? And is she commenting?
Yes. Anybody on this Zoom, picture this. Your wife works in the exact same business as you do and has the same pressures as you do. Say your wife's an accountant and you're an accountant. Tax time. Who's going to work early? Who's taking the kids to school? Who's doing all that stuff? Well, luckily, she picks a lot of whites, Sauv Blanc and stuff. And so the beginning, I'm in charge of the house. Or I'm in charge of the house most of the time, actually, because my wife is very good at admin and the stuff, the behind the scenes, the not so glamorous side of the business. She is very, very good at that. I am not so good at that. So she gets to work really early when no one's there. I do my kids' lunch and I do the breakfast. I do all the stuff. And we have a very good,
Russell, real quick, apologies for interrupting, but I'm assuming most people on here know who your wife is, but for those that don't, can you just, as you continue the story, just let everybody know?
So my wife is Velia. She has Desperado, and her brand is about 5 minutes. Her winery is 5 minutes from mine, and we often joke. We say we have his and her wineries and an 8-year-old, and then we have 2 vineyards to run too, where it gets crazy. It's a lot. And so we just have other than she's early and I'm late, and we kind of understand that I'm going to take a lot of the heat at the beginning. She's going to take a lot at the end, or I'm going to be at work working all the time at the end. And the middle, we just kind of jive and figure it out. But we really, it's crazy how well we do it to get the understanding that we have together, and that we can bounce ideas. We often bottle. When we bottle, we bottle her wines a day before mine. We kind of group it all up, and then we shift staff. So her staff, like the last couple of years, we've done all red processing for her at my place because I have a lot of space outside, and that's where we do the processing. And she has a small space, not a lot of outside processing, and the footprint of all the sorting equipment and the destemming equipment and all that takes up so much space. we just do it at my place and then we ship it over. But then all her staff comes over and helps us so that we get through it quicker. And I have an employee, longtime employee, Cameron, who has Ultimate Thule wines. There's a little shout out to Ultimate Thule. I told him, I said, man, we've gotten so much efficient. And he says, no, we just all have kids now. And that's it. We want to go home. We don't want to stay. You know, back in the day when I was younger, we say, oh, we work till 2, 3 in the morning. And now I do a lot of refrigerated trucking. We do night picks. We make it more efficient. And so, and I can, refrigerated trucking is really nice because I can pick grapes at night in Santa Maria, for instance. I can do Monday night and we're done at 6 a.m. We're putting it all in a refrigerated truck. I can keep that truck parked in my parking lot. And then the next day I can start in the morning because we're doing it outside and it's Paso Robles, it gets hot. We can start processing in the morning. And then by the time I bring more grapes, and that's how it happened this year, luckily it never really got hot. So we didn't have to worry about the daytime temperature getting too extreme. And so we could just do big days where we're holding the grapes for, you know, a night, cold, ice cold. And the colder, the better, because we can get our long cold soaks, right? When we process, we're trying to get it cold. We use dry ice, we do tank cold, everything's cold, cold, cold. We want to get the cold into the grapes so that we get all that extraction and color and all the things that we want. So long answer.
As it relates to your two wineries, it seems to me you're producing more Rhone varietals, some Bordeaux. Your wife seems like more Bordeaux and Italian. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. Yeah, she has. I saw somebody say love sackcloth and ashes. That's a great one. Sackcloth and ashes soothsayer. She does all kinds of Sauvignon Blanc. She's a much more experimental than I am. She has amphora, acacia, concrete, French. What else? Stainless. She does all kinds of different fermentations and then brings them all together and does a lot more blending. They call me the lumber liquidator. I use a lot of new oak. That's kind of, I'm just old school, kind of, you know, same wash, rinse, repeat. You know, we have the same recipe. And so, and I love, and it's crazy. We make so many different wines. I'm out of kind of other, I did the witness protection. I did made. That was kind of
Made, I
my
was just going to
super
ask you about that. Was made influenced because you had some Italian varietals in there, right? Was that influenced by any of the work that she does?
It 100%. I got the Barbera. I pinched it off her contract. The Sangio, I pinched it off her contract. We share a Giraldago from a new vineyard, Nolan, which is awesome. And then I use my cab and Syrah that I get from other sources for bolt cutter, and I try to not make it this. It's not the same as hers. You know, I was telling somebody the other day. My one of my lines is the wine. You know how winemaker or their dog looks like the owner.
Yeah,
Not every case. Well, here we go on the dogs.
Has Molly walked back behind you, Mike, here recently?
Yes, right.
Mine look like me.
The wine looks like the winemaker too. And it's really true. You know, you get a stiff winemaker, doesn't have a lot of personality. What are the wines? Stiff and not a lot of personality. My wife's are very powerful, sexy, and polished, and that is her. And mine are a little, they're big, and I don't want to say in your face, but they're rustic. I'm a rustic guy. I like country music. I wear pearl snaps, and that's my wines, but polished too. I'm sophisticated, kind of, and I'd like to think that I can act sophisticated when I have to. Normally, like I said, I'm not sophisticated. Coors Light sounds great, but and a cheeseburger. But if I make the cheeseburger, come on over. It'll be good. I guarantee it. I hope.
Well, hey, Russell, I know
Pardon my ignorance, but has there ever been a collaboration, or are you going to collaborate someday with Valia?
You know, we've thought about this, and we have our new vineyard. So we have Shill. That's so 80% of the grapes I buy, and then 20% are from our own vineyard, Shill Mountain, which is in York Mountain. And there's it's 35 acres, 15 producing, which are 24-year-old vines, and then
And it's
we
mostly
have
cab, right?
mostly Cab, and she
Yeah.
gets Sauv Blanc from there and Cab Franc, and then I have Petit Verdot that we share, and I get the Cab and Syrah, and then we have 20 acres that are coming on next year, and maybe we'll do something like that, but we've never really done it. She's done collaboration. So Cameron, who I was talking about, Ultima Thule, her and Cameron, they love sparkling wines, so they started a project called Scarab. It's very good. I'd write that down, Scarab. And it's done in the old school style where they dosage and it's methane
Champagne wall.
yeah, there you go. Yes. And I drink a lot of that here. I drink a lot of my wife's wines because her Sauv Blancs are unbelievable. Chardonnays are unbelievable. All her wines are really, really good. And it's not they are, we share a same kind of style, and the main thing that we share is preservation. These wines have to, there's no flaws, there's no weird smells, there's purity. And she's trying to get the purity out of all her wines. So am I. And you know, they don't have high VA, they don't have Brett, they don't have weird things. They're fresh and they have ageability, and they just taste, they try to taste good. You know, that's it. It's taste. How do they taste? Who cares about what people want to drink, or they say, oh, I'm stuck in this style. That's the thing about the Psalms. They get stuck in a style. They don't realize that there's other things that taste good.
Well, hey, I know we're getting close to time, and I got two more. I'll do really quick questions. Then, time permitting, we'll open it up for Q&A. I think there's
I'm
a
all
few
yours.
sitting in the chat too.
I'll
So,
talk till there's only one person left.
all right. Well, so this is a popular one, so I don't want to skip it because it's become really popular with the group. Pro tip. Would love to get a pro tip from you. Anything that you can suggest that might help the audience with consuming wine, whether it's anything from storage to the proper vessels, to whatever it might be. Any pro tips you can share?
Yes. Yeah, good question. I would say if you're drinking my wines, and I should have probably told you this about 10 hours ago, decant them and roughly decant any young wine. If you really, and you can decant hard, like don't be gentle on a fresh wine, a newer vintage. Beat it up because there's a weird topping and we're keeping it cold. You know, the gases in that wine stay in there. So when you have a new wine and you decant it, there's a lot of gas on the top. That's CO2, oxygen, all these things that are preservers of wine. And because we don't move the wines too much, that stays in solution. You want that out. It's for ageability. And if you open an older wine, you'll be surprised on how little there is of that because it's diluted and it's just gone away. So decant a newer wine, especially my wines, decant them. And if you're opening 3 or 4 of them at a party, just decant them into anything. I don't care, a jug, a bowl, whatever, and then put them right back in the same bottle, and then everyone knows what's in there. Another thing is cold, the temperature. Temperature is really important on a wine. If you're a big collector, you go buy a cheap refrigerator or put them somewhere where it's cold and constant. I keep the winery at 57 degrees all year long, whether it's 105 out. It takes a lot of energy, and it just has to happen. And then what else? If drink lots of Herman Story, that's it.
Good pro tips. So then my last question, we'll open it up, and my wife Sherry and I have been members for a long time. Love your wines, but can you talk a little bit about what membership looks like if somebody's thinking about joining? What's your club look like?
Well, thank you very much. As Billy Mays, the late great Billy Mays, here's how to order. My club is my bread and butter. Basically, I sell 60-70% of all the wine through the wine club, and probably 60%, and then another 10-15% out of the tasting room and the direct from the winery. But I offer 20% off, and so you get that, and then you get 6 in the spring, 6 in the fall. You can go on the website and you can join there, and it's I'll never send you a slouch. I never put 6 rosés in there. I do make a rosé after hours. It's pretty popular. A lot of people like that wine. But I always put every dollar into it. I try not to raise the price. I try to, in this day and age, everybody raises their price. I raised mine a couple of years ago. I'm trying to stay there, even though my costs rise. I really try to give all I can to the consumer, and I think every bottle that you drink is worth what you paid, and so and there's not a lot of image pricing in there. A lot of Napa. I do have my own cab from Shell. I sell for $150 a bottle, but I spend about $15,000 an acre to farm it, and I get about 1.18 tons. And I put it all in brand new oak, and it sits for 30 months, and it sits for a year in barrel. So you can only imagine the costs that I accrue over that time, but that's the real price. That's what I've, and if you want to taste what that's like, it unfortunately it costs more. But all the wines, I really try to value price them. And value is not cheap. Value is not inexpensive. Value is what you get for what you're paying, and it's really important to me. And so it always has been. So I try to do that. But if you want to join the club, or if you want any wines, just email us. We don't have a fancy code you have to enter. Just email us, and I'll see it. Janie will see it. Chris will see it. I'm old fashioned. I don't want people to have a code to get in. I want them to really talk to us and call us. There's always somebody on the phone. If you call us, sometimes I answer. I try to as often as I can. And I don't know how to do anything in the computer, so I'll pass you to somebody else. But yeah, call us. And we make all kinds of different wines. And like I said, I'll never send you a slouch. There's always some wines that, like rosés and different other wines that we make small production of, are available to the club. They don't even go out into the distro or out into we don't even pour them in the tasting room. And so, yeah, you can't lose, I don't think. And so, yeah.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your time tonight. I will just say it again. We've been members for a long time, Sherry and I, and love your stuff and really appreciate your time tonight. I know we're at time, Mike. I'm going to turn it back over to you. If you want to run through any Q&A, if there's any pending questions there. I'm out of the country, unfortunately. I got to jump for another appointment. But Russell, I'm really grateful for the time, and thank you everybody who joined tonight.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Russell. Thank you so much for joining us. Really fascinating. And one thing I learned tonight was I understand wine styles. But what I got to learn tonight was Russell Fromm's style. And that was really, really fascinating to me.
Well, thank you.
I hope everybody else got the benefit of that. And I am like you. I like flavors, and I eat that way. I drink that way. I drink my bourbon that way. I like to change the flavors around. I don't want to drink the same thing over and over again and be bored with it. So I'm excited when I change wines, and I have wines from many, many winemakers in Paso, but I enjoy trying them all, and yours are extraordinary though.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I saw somebody's drinking a 17 Shell, Drew is, and that the Shell Mountain Cab, that's like my baby. I getting fruit from so many different sources. I'm often I can't let any, and I'm slightly competitive. My people will say I am very competitive, but I'm not that competitive. I just like good stuff. And my own place, I can't let anybody farm anything better than my own place. And so that's what you get when you, from the cab that I make from Shell. It's like bonsai. And I starve it of water, and sometimes I lose, sometimes I win on those vintages. I take more risks, but I don't have to explain. If I lose, I don't have to explain it to anybody but myself.
That's right.
And so I push and push.
Who has questions? And make sure to unmute yourself. or raise your hand and I'll call on you. Craig, you have to unmute if you're raising your hand. If anybody has a question.
I do have a question, Mike. Hey, Russell, love hearing your story. So my wife and I pretty much are big wine drinkers. We like the Syrahs and whatnot. We're not much of a Pinot fan, except for yours. Your Smash City is like no Pinot that I've ever had before. What are you doing differently with your Pinot? Because it's just amazing.
Well, thank you. I'm doing the same as I do on all. I wait and I taste. And Pinot is one of those ones where I could let Syrah just hang and hang and hang. And I think I talked earlier, I let myself have a mulligan every year, and it's never because I waited too long. Pinot's a different beast. I understand this. And the label is cartoonish, and it's called Smash City because when I was in Santa Maria and Santa Barbara, all the Pinot makers were very like, this is the hardest grape to make, it's this and that. It's not the hardest grape to make. It ripens early, so you don't have Mother Nature to deal with. You don't have to wait for the sugar to get that ripe to make what you want a Burgundian one. And so I have to push and push and push, and I wait and wait and wait, and until the color and the flavor gets really, really good, and then I pick it. And then also the terroir, if you will, Biennacido is where I get that. It's cool climate, so it allows me to take a variety that ripens fast and just naturally ripens early, and I put it in a cool climate so I can even draw it out even longer on the time. I get a lot of Syrah there, a lot of Grenache. On my Syrah and Grenache, I have to drop the yields to almost nothing to get it ripe to the flavor I want. And so the Pinot, we do the same thing. It's very light yield, and it's a fun wine to make. Sometimes we get 1 ton. I have like 2.5 acres there, and sometimes we only get I eat it on that one. But at the same time, every drop counts. And once we make the wine and super concentrated, that's what people want. And from me especially, I have to make them concentrated. And it's waiting. It's waiting, and it's not over the top. The alcohol is pushing a little more than most Pinots, but on that one, I'm fairly restrained, which is an odd thing to put my name in the same sentence. It's fairly restrained.
Yeah, it's fantastic. In fact, we enjoyed tonight your White Hawk. I went and bought a case of your White Hawk, your 2021, and decanted it for 2 hours, and it's fabulous. My wife described you as the mad scientist because you're just really, really good.
Awesome. That's a vineyard. I've had the same section in Larner since 2002. I have the exact same sections at Larner for that's 22 years or 21 years. And at White Hawk, I have now 3.5 acres, but the 1.5 acres is the same since 2003. And so I start to learn that vineyard. And that's one of the ones where I see everybody clear out. They all pick, and I'm like, God, no. It hasn't hit that sweet spot. And the White Hawk is real sandy, and it's like a limestoney sand. And so the acid holds, and I never get, the pH doesn't get crazy. I can just hold it, get it riper, darker, more concentrated, and then I pick it usually. And I go 1 cluster per shoot. I'm really light. And every vineyard, I'm always trying to get the vineyard to lighten the load on the vine so that the vine can get to the sugar that I want and not dilute it over many clusters. It's like kids. You have 10 kids, you can give them a certain amount of watchfulness. If you have 5, you're going to be a better parent. And so the vine, I give them less, and they can get the sugar I want. So
Excellent.
White Hawk's great. Thank you.
That's an excellent raw.
I'm sorry, Mike. We also purchased some of your York Mountain, which we haven't had yet. We've never tried that. So when I bought some of your White Hawk, I bought the York Mountain. What would you say the difference is between the two of them? And then what would you pair what do you think is best to pair with your Syrahs?
The bigger the better. Meat, big, steaks. The York Mountain is interesting. That a lot of that comes from shell, and then I have 1 acre over at Epic's vineyard, York Mountain Vineyard, and so I have 2 acres of Syrah, so it's 3, and depending on the vintage, we can do a bottling. Sometimes the yields are low, and we can't do a bottling, and we put it in the nuts and bolts or find a home for it. But York Mountain's kind of a mixture of cool climate and warm climate. Because it's halfway between Paso and the ocean, and we're at 1,800 feet. And so it has a lot of the same things that the cool climate has, and it's the best of both worlds. And it's become the hot region in Paso. Everybody wants to be in York Mountain, but it's all wooded. There's just little pockets of cleared ground, and you can't, we're only allowed to take a few trees. You're allowed 5% of your trees, and it's not good for, not good on the media and all that. Taking trees out is tough. So you have a limited amount of space there, but whereas White Hawk, that's a little warmer. So you get this brambly, real blueberry and bramble pie, if you will. And then York Mountain is a little cooler climate, and you get a little more earth, but you still get the brambly. It's kind of the best of both. I love York Mountain. It's awesome. And the cab that we make from there is very much more like Napa Mountain, like Howell Mountain, Spring Mountain, than it is Paso. Sometimes I'll tell people, taste this and tell me where it's from, and they don't think Paso. And so but from the top of our vineyard, you can see Vineyard Drive and everything else, totally different. It's more loamy, limestoney down there. We have shale, like the sandstone and shale, which acts the same as any other rock in the vineyard, where it holds acid and it holds moisture, and you don't have to water as much, and the vines fight through it. And so it's quite similar in that, but and then White Hawk sandy, and so you get this brambly thing. And so I try to get fruit from all over the place, so that I give everybody a wide spectrum of. And then I do nuts and bolts. The Syrah comes from all the little places, and then you try to create another profile that extends all those regions. That's kind of our focus on that. So
great.
But thank you. Thanks for getting those, and decant the hell out of that York. It's got about 80-90% new oak on that. And you decant it, it'll be real good about 2 hours later.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
We have a question from Dave Phillips. He wants to know, are you making a Larner in the future?
Oh yeah, every year I make a Larner, and nothing's easy, but it's the easiest one. I've been in that vineyard so long, I know when I taste the grapes when it's time to pick. And in the last 6 to 8 years, I've been able to co-ferment it, because I used to do a single Larner Grenache and a single vineyard Larner Syrah, and I just couldn't. That would be about 180 cases of each. That's not enough to get everybody a bottle, and so then I started co-fermenting them. That's the way I pick it. I've picked it for 8 years now, and I never pick anything at its wrong time. Even at Larner, I don't pick either one of them at the wrong time. They just ripen at the same time. They are foolproof. And any vintage, difficult vintage, Larner's great. Easy vintage, Larner's great. It is. The Ballard Canyon is a really good area. And Larner is just, the vines are old. It's just easy peasy on that one. And then the Viognier is awesome too. And Michael Larner is great to deal with. It's just easy. So I love that place.
Question from me: are you going to have another 400 series in the near future? Or?
Nah, the 400, like I was saying earlier, the wood tanks can't move. So once they're placed there, they are. And I did I did Grenache in there one time. I left it in there for 2.5 years, and at the end it tasted like Beaujolais. I was like, man, this thing it didn't age at all. It's just the wood tank's so thick, and we're keeping it top, or we're keeping it so fresh. It was too fresh, and they looked really good. They were really pretty, but they're like the same price I bought them for. The brewery, a couple breweries offered me money, the same price I paid. I got a year of wood out of them, and I was like, I got to get them out of here. And so we don't do the extended. And it was crazy. The last grapes that we would process and that we would put in the press were from the year before. And so my crew would look at me like I'm nuts. Like, what are you doing? We're done with harvest, and now we have to clean the press like with toothbrush and detail it all, and then we have to bring in grapes that we got the year before, and we have argon all over. We're all sitting with argon in our lungs, trying to get this wine out and not let it oxidize, because it's finished wine at that point. There's no CO. When you're after wine that just finished fermentation has CO2 blowing off. It's rough and rustic. It's like it hasn't evolved like wine has. And so after 400 days, it's real wine then, and it oxidizes just like the glass, like your wine glass, it oxidizes. And so you give it air, it goes bad. And so it was just a lot of work, and we would have to just shovel it as fast as we could, and it was fun, but we don't do it anymore.
So no more maceration.
No more. Right. I do a little bit. I used to do a lot more whole cluster. I don't do that much anymore. And whole cluster is easy. You just throw it in the bin. But we like to destem now most of the stuff. We do a little bit of Grenache whole cluster if we're feeling fancy. But most of the time, everything goes through the destemmer, and we sort it, because when you're doing whole cluster, you can't sort. And so if you have leaves and you have clusters that are no matter how fine tuned we make it, there's always one or two here and there that the clusters don't ripen as fast as the other ones or whatever. We want those out, or they ripen too fast and they're raisining. We want those out. And so it's just one more look at what we're processing, what we're fermenting, what we're making wine out of.
So who else has a question? Michigan, you have to have a question. You're up this late. Come on, John.
No, I don't know if you can hear me. I think you can. I did take my last bottle of 440 with my sons up to the Upper Peninsula, and we enjoyed it watching the sunset over Lake Superior. It was amazing. So
nice. Thank you. Yeah, the UP.
Up in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, the UP as they call it. I have outside of California, it's crazy. Outside of California and like Nevada, any state that touches California, I have a lot of wine club members, and then the other concentration is Michigan. I have a lot of big fans in Michigan, and I've done a lot of events there. I've been all over Grand Rapids, Grand Haven, Holland, Ann Arbor.
Grand Haven.
Where are you guys from?
We're right near Grand Rapids in Grand Haven.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, all right.
You were at the beach house. That was a great night.
Yes, yeah, right. Everyday People. The restaurant, is that there?
Yeah.
That Sagatuck, I think. Yeah.
A little north of Sagatuck. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Holland, Butch's.
Huh?
Yeah, Butch's.
Right. So I love it. I love it up there. And I did a dinner in Frankenmuth where it's all Christmas all year long.
Yeah.
All over. I love Michigan. So
Yes, it is.
yeah, but 440, the 440, those extended age wines, now they're tasting really like 426. I had one the other day, and it's just like Christmas cookie spice, and and again, the viscosity is really, really cool having it sit on the skins and all that. So we dig around for those. I don't even know. I think we don't even have any, but we might have a little bit of one or two of those, but shoot me an email if anybody wants one. I can look around. I have my own select library, and it
Right.
kind of got pilfered through the Corona, and so everybody was like, "Oh, do you have this? Do you have that?" And I was like, "Oh man, I don't have anything left," which is great. I'm making wine to sell wine, but kind of now I'm hoarding. So.
Anybody else have a question?
No, I have a comment, Mike. This is Debbie, and I just
Hi,
wanted
Debbie.
hi. I just wanted to thank Russell for making such a wonderful wine. It's one of my favorites, and I'm always happy when Craig opens one. And we had an experience at Mike and Chris's house where they had a dinner, and then we did a blind tasting of about 12 wines. And my top two picks were both Herman Story. And I am always happy when I drink one of your wines, Russell. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We at the winery, we call it a house palette. And I've had a lot of employees that have been with me for 10, 12 years. And we do, when I have 4 or 5 different blends, I'll do like dog, cat, whatever. And we'll name them something, and we all pick the same one. It's like the house palette that we have. And it's I appreciate that very much. And we're always focused on how it tastes and everything.
Yeah, you've been under my Christmas tree numerous times.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. I'm a big boy. You must have a big tree.
Now it's
I have a great husband.
yeah.
What I like.
trying to fill a wine cellar here.
So-
you know? Oh.
So basically, Craig makes allowances then. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right. I saw somebody said that we have a lot of distribution in Delaware. Per square mile, Delaware might be our biggest market. Sorry, Michigan. Sorry, Nancy. But because it's just so small, we're all over in Delaware. But
No kidding.
But I find that Pennsylvania has the state stores, and it's hard. They only want to deal with the big producers and everything. And so what everybody does, they drive over the border. They can buy all the wine in Delaware, load up their trunk. And it's funny, as soon as you go over the border, it's like California to Vegas. As soon as you go over the border, it's casinos, and the exact defined line. And when you go from Pennsylvania to Delaware, it's like whiskey shop, specialty gin shop, specialty wine shop, specialty this, and it's funny how that works. And so Delaware is a big market for us as well. We've done a bunch of stuff in Rehoboth Beach. I've done all over. I have been all over. And the thing is a lot of winemakers, they don't like to do all that kind of stuff. And if I wasn't a winemaker, I would be selling something. I would be a traveling salesperson or something. I like talking to the people. I love selling wine. I love making wine. And luckily, I like selling wine, and I like doing the dinners and doing stuff like this and talking to the people. I enjoy it. It's fun. I've had this has been a cool time, and you're talking to people that like what you do. That's nice too.
Are you doing the pouring at High Times?
I am, on the 21st.
Oh, okay. So Craig, Debbie, myself, my wife, and Jason are all going to be there.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see our faces again.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That's soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a couple weeks. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. High Times is a fantastic place.
Oh,
If you've never been there in SoCal, in Costa Mesa.
yeah. Leave your wallet in your car. You get in trouble. Well, not when I'm there. You can bring it, but careful. They have everything there.
What they have in there is an extraordinary collection of wines and later vintages, right? That you can't get your hands on in most places.
Somebody said they want their ashes scattered at High Times. That's better than the beach.
Oh, so you think?
You'll age gracefully.
I know them, Laura and Joe. Yeah, they're great. They were just here a couple of weeks ago. Who else has got a question? Anybody? Come on, you got to have questions.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we're at the end of the road. Brian, you got anything? Brian and Ann Anne is a member of our team, the Paso Robles Wine Fanatics team. There she is waving. And Brian Broom, who's a member of the group, he and Ann went out and filmed video at your place. Obviously, you know that.
Right.
Just wanted everybody else to know. And I did my best to insert it.
That was good. Yeah.
I'm pulling all the levers over here, so it's a little difficult for a very non-techie guy. But
Yeah.
try to make it work the best I could.
I was wondering how they were going to do that because I've never had the video interacted with the Zoom. So I was like, oh wow, like I said, they don't even give me a code to get in the computer because by default they know I'm in there. When they gave me a code, it's yours, and you had to have been in here. I didn't do it right or whatever. But it's I'll do everything else but the computer. I can do it.
By the way, this is like our 32nd episode of this. So we're trying to move on up, we're trying to move it up, step it up a little bit. Who knows? We might have 4K.
Oh, wow.
We're down to 1K right now, I think. Anyways, we're trying to have some fun. Hey, Laura and Joe.
Hey, Mike, I have another question actually. So Russell, can I ask about, as far as aging, the wines and whatnot. So I just literally, like I said, I opened up a 2021 White Hawk and I decanted for 2 hours. My wife and I have a charcuterie board here and it's absolutely amazing, this young wine. But we also have a cellar to go ahead and age wines. So tell me, with your wine, what difference am I going to have with this 2021 5 years from now? I mean, what's the difference?
The hills and the valleys and the palate. When I taste a newer wine, it has all this unctuation. It's like going around. And when you have long time in barrel or in bottle, all of the cracks are filled and it just flows nicely. And any wine, my wine, or in particular my wine, I have experience with tasting them over time. They just get softer, rounder, richer, and no seams, no cracks. Just it goes in your mouth and it's just perfect. And the decanting will really get you there quicker. But on the fresh wines, sometimes it's like up and down and up and down and like I said, I taste a lot of them. My wife always jokes like, "Man, I bottled it 3 days ago and I'm tasting it." I said, "Well, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of the wines. I don't have a lot of time in bottle. I bottle them in February and I ship them like the first week in April or whatever, and they don't have a lot of time in bottle and." I have to make them so when people open them right away. And I almost had a contest where I was going to say, if you can show me your proof of receipt, like your FedEx sign, you got it, and show me 6 empty bottles, you would win a contest. Because some of them they'll be like, "Oh, I got the bottles on Friday." I said, "Oh, what did you try?" We tried them all over the weekend and we want to order a couple extra. I said, "All right." And I know that, there's statistics out there with the big companies have statistics that 60% of the wine purchased right now is drunk right away. But just like waiting on the vine for grapes to be picked, well, it's not really like that because if you pick them too early, they just don't taste good. But so scrap that analogy. The aging it creates the silky texture. It's a lot of the texture. That's where you get texture, more texture.
And you can't get that with a longer decant, right? I mean,
there's a
5 hours.
Yeah, I think just a couple hours beating it up, even a double decant, getting all those gases out of there. Like when we're tasting at the winery and we pour samples, we have these little 375s that we take and we pour a sample. If I wait for all the gas to dissipate off the meniscus of the wine, the top surface, and once the gas goes away, I know that I'm smelling the wine. If it has a lot of gas in there, I know that I want to get rid of that. And there's a famous in the wine community, there's the Molly Duker shake. If you have ever heard this, the Molly Duker wines, they tell you to take a little bit out and then shake the hell out of them to get all the gas out. And you could call the Herman Story shake too, even if you don't have a decanter, and you just shake the bottle and let that gas get out of there and flip it over a couple times, and then put the cork back in. If you're camping and that's your only way to decant, this is the way I would do it. Shake them up, get all that gas out. The gas is what is creating, but that gas gives me age in the bottle.
Right.
And
Yeah,
it's because we don't take them out and we're keeping them so top. There's no oxygen leaving.
No, I decant for about an hour to 2 hours, but I will shake the decanter for like 15 to 30 seconds and then put it in the cellar for an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. You want all those gases. You want it to pour smooth without not a lot of gas coming off the top. That is I think the best way of doing it.
Yeah, I never considered the gas. I didn't even think about the gas that's still in there.
Yeah. It's got all kinds of dissolved oxygen and CO2 and all that other stuff. But I want to come party at your house. I'll bet you got quite a selection.
Yeah,
you don't even know. You don't even know a great house to party at.
Yeah. Sometimes I can play the winemaker card if I go to somebody's house and they'll say, "Well, I never had a winemaker here. Let's open something crazy." I said, "Okay."
No. We'll plan a whole evening around it. There you go.
Mike and I and Jason, we usually get together and we'll have a dinner and we pull out all of our good stuff, and my daughter works for us. She cooks, she doesn't have to, she can't afford the wines. So, because we kind of get a high end stuff, do some of the Saint Juanons and some of the other stuff, and just have a good time. But it's funny when Debbie was mentioning about she picked out of the the top three. Yours were 1 and 2. The third one she picked was actually, I had bought a Block B from Epic, a library wine from like it was 2010 or 2011. Yours was like a 2017, and she preferred your wine over the Block B library wine. So, yeah.
Awesome.
And Nina was in there too, and Nina was very good.
Yes.
Same vineyard, same Bien Nacido, right? Something
Right.
like that. Yeah, all same fruit. It's all interesting, but you pick differently, so everybody's going to be different. But I like those different. I like those changes in flavor. I enjoy them all.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll taste. Sometimes I'll go around and I'll taste, and I'm lowest on yield, so I'm ripening faster. And I'll go around and I'll taste, and no one's there. We're very, very, maybe I don't know. I'm there in the vineyards all the time. I don't see a lot of winemakers. Not saying they're not doing their job, but I don't see a lot of them out there. I have gate codes after gate codes after gate codes of all these places where I'm getting fruit, and I'll taste other stuff to kind of see, because no one's there. Why not? And I'll be like, oh man, this is totally different. And then I'll go back and it's picked. And then I'll taste mine. I'll say mine's not ready, and I know theirs wasn't ready, but they picked anyway. And but hey, everybody has their own style and everything else. But and then I tell new employees, don't believe a truck driver or don't believe a vineyard manager. The next truck is right behind the other truck, and the vineyard is always going to tell you it's the sugar you want to hear. And so you have to go there and do it. You have to go there and taste. And there's there's big times where you have to be there, shoot thinning, fruit drop, and pick. And I'll often say a vineyard has a resume, and I think vineyard management is number 1, and when you pick is number 2 on what's important, and then all the other timetables, and it's all timing and lack of water but the timing is a lack of water issue as well. If you look at the vines and they look like they need water, water them. If they don't look like they need water, don't. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Russell, can I tell you, I appreciate what you were just saying, because brings me back to things like Buenasito Vineyard, where I've tested a couple of spots where I'm like, I bought the same grape from that vineyard, but 2 different producers in the same year. And I've tried to do side-by-side tastings, and it's amazing how different the wines and the bottles are. And so what you're saying just brings that back, you know, what was the timing of the picking, right? What vessels were they fermenting in, all of those kinds of pieces. And so it's fun to do that once in a while. Go, how come this wine is $25 and this other wine is $65? And it says it's from the same vineyard. It says it's the same year, you know, and the same varietal. So
it is crazy. That's a very, he's one of, Chris Hamill's one of my best buddies, and he's the vineyard manager there. And he doesn't ask a lot of questions. He can't. If people want to pick a certain sugar, that's your style, perfect. So it must be very difficult for him. I've never really talked to him about this. I joke around about, oh, who's picking, who's not. And they know I'm the last one. I am always the last one. And it's not because I want to be. It's just because there's potential. Like this year, we had on the Sunday before I picked on Monday, and it rained on Wednesday. On the Sunday, we had a little offshore winds. It was 84 degrees in Santa Maria. It's never 84 degrees. And I pushed another brick. And the vines down in that cool climate, they don't see that. 84 degrees in Paso, the vines laugh. They don't move at all. They need 100 for any kind of sugar movement. And down there, they're sitting at 68, 72, 75 all the time, 84 degrees, like boom. And when the vines get to the end of the season, when I get them, they're tired just like we are, and they want to get the vine off the ground. And their objective is, in all reality, any plant, they want to get the seed on the ground. They don't know it goes to a winery. They just know that my job's done as a plant. And so I wait. And they're finally, sometimes they tell me, hey, I'm going to lose. There's going to be no one here. So I have to pick. But, and the thing I run into a lot of times with the vineyards like that, like Buenasito, is when people start picking Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, that's when I'm dropping crop. That's when I need to go in and drop all the green clusters. But at the same time, they're harvesting Pinot Noir in the morning. So it's really hard for the crews to go, oh, wow, I'm picking, and now I'm dropping. Or when the mad rush is picking Chardonnay and picking Pinot Noir in a vineyard that size, you have to fight for Syrah because it's a late ripener. Where I'll have my just coloring in Santa Maria, I'll be picking Syrah and Paso that's full sugar. And that's why this year at 35 days of harvest was crazy. Everything was ripening at the same time. We did a lot of co-fermenting of different AVAs. I mean, we had stuff that was coming in with super high acid and stuff that was from Paso that was round and rich and didn't have as much acid. And I hate adding acid. I never add acid. I don't even have tartaric acid in my facility. I'm finding it naturally in cool climate, and I'm blending it. And if I can co-ferment it and get it integrated as fast, it's like braising meat with the mirepoix. And if you cook them separate, they're different. Cook them the same, the meat's giving a little flavor to the carrots giving sweetness to the meat, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why I do the co-fermenting. So on a year like this, when it's all happening all at once, it's game day decision. We're on the press pad. We're saying this is going to go with this. And towards the end, I start to know that, oh, I'm going to leave something out in Paso. I'm going to let it get real ripe, especially on Grenache. I get it real ripe, and I know I'm going to pull some stuff from Santa Maria that's not going to make it through a rain. But I have this other stuff to balance it out, and it really worked out nice. But it was fast and furious. You got to be on your game. But yeah, it's crazy that the vineyard manager there at Buenasito is picking, from 21 bricks, Pinot Noir, 22, 23, 24. From me, 26, 27. And but he never gives us any grief. Never gives me any grief down there. They'll let me do whatever I want. And they understand my plight.
I have a question for you. You've been You've been there since 2001. 10,000-foot view. How have you? What changes have you seen that have been extraordinary over the last 22 years, 23 years in Paso? What do you think?
Oh, it's so the first 10 years I was in Santa Maria, and I had a lot of fun in Paso. And the original building I went to Paso in was the old Garrettson facility, which is out on 46 across from the Ford dealership there. And that he was part of the Roan Ranger and everything else. And I remember going in to his spot, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. We're going into Garrettson, and that is where Saxum started, and Lene Collado, and all these guys. And then they started going out and getting their own places and building their own wineries. And it wasn't that long ago, like I joke, my vines are 24-year-old vines in Paso Robles. That's old vine Paso at 24 years. And it's every open spot is planted or is being considered for planting. It was the mad land rush in the last few years in Paso, with Napa having its issues and the fires and the Napa. A lot of the vintners up there kind of, you get, I'm not saying bored, because we have the great job, but you want a new new projects are fun. And Paso is accelerating on how becoming one of the best wine regions in the world, really, and it should be, because we don't get as much rain as Napa. We don't have the elements that we have to deal with as they do in Napa. And it's this, we get the cold diurnal shift, the cold nights and the hot days, even hotter than Napa. And the soils are rocky, and there's all these different profiles of different microclimates and everything else. And it's just flourished. It's crazy. Like York Mountain was one of the earliest AVAs back in 1981. And then 1890 something was the York Mountain Winery. That was when wine wasn't even, and it's crazy, the history over there. And then you have Everly and you have Turley, all those old vines, and no one ever thought that Paso would be as where it is now. And we do have Napa coming down. They're buying stuff, and I hope it never gets to that point, but you can only expect it to. There's like 3 or 4 big hotel projects going on right now, and the restaurant scene's always constantly improving, and it's crazy. And people ask me, so how many wineries are there in Paso? I said, well, just since we've been talking, 2 more. Yeah. It's like, man, they're fast.
300, 320, 330, yeah. 340, 350.
Yeah, you sound like an auctioneer.
And there's been a lot of turnover this year. And obviously there's been some sales. Interesting to say. I don't find it all. My wife and I have been going there since the early 2000s, and I don't see it necessarily all for the as a negative. We'll see where it goes. You just don't know. But I think things will pretty much stay the same. I mean, I think most people like the small production boutique places like yourself, and those are where the golden treasures, where the treasures are at. I mean, really, it is. And always trying to find a new one. We had friends that said, I heard Herman Story, this is 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Herman Story, we got to go there. That's how we ended up going by your place. I mean, it's just word of mouth. Right. Just things work.
Yeah, there's a lot more. Like they have Tin City where my wife is. There's probably
I love that place.
Yeah, there's like 16, 18 small wineries over there. Mike English, he owns all that and built those and there was no place for the small winery to go at that point. The city didn't want them. They're just on the edge of the county. The county was okay with it, and everybody has their own tank of wastewater is one of the big issues of where you're going to put your wastewater. So everyone has their own tank, and there's a company that comes and takes all your water away, and where it goes, you just kind of, so I don't know. But it gave everybody a place to make their own, make their own business and do their own style and build out their own tasting rooms. It's really cool over there. They have restaurants and everything else. It's crazy that place. You could spend a whole day there. And,
Well, there's been so many wineries that, like, I can consider it an incubator in the tech terminology, and so many of them branched out. They moved away. Torrin, Clos-Solène, they all started there, and then they moved out, and some have remained, and they even have their own vineyard and properties but they don't leave. I think it's a great concept. If on people on this particular broadcast have not watched the movie Tin City, although it's dated now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like the wineries are talking about it, kind of things have shifted, but it's still an amazing place to go, and the food experience is there now, and that was the biggest downfall when you went there 10-15 years ago. Wasn't a lot of food around. So
yeah, now they have Eto, and there's a new barbecue place that is coming in, I think, and so it's crazy. And I thought about doing that when I bought Shell. I'm on a little easement. I can never build anything out there, and I like being in town. It's easy to get everything. I need a part or something or whatever, I can just go. And if you ever come to my place, I'm between a tire shop and a welding gas supply place. I back up to the Highway 101. Literally, there's a fence there that says, do not cross. And that's where I am. And I joke, the barrels have no idea they're not in the cave in Napa. That's one of my but I like it there. I get off the freeway, I go to work, I come back, and then the vineyard is, I'll often joke about that. It's the prettiest vineyard that no one will ever see. I keep it very tight. Everything's really clean and nice. And I would love a winery on a vineyard and all that, but just not the way the cards played. I leased that vineyard for a while. The older couple that owned it, they allowed me to do a lease purchase, which is unheard of. Doesn't happen very often. All my lease went to my down payment, so I didn't have to come up with this big down payment. And they let me get the equity over 5 years. So it was a dream of mine to have property, and then that enabled that. And then all around me, York Mountain started to become a hot spot. So I was able to, just give the bank every dollar of equity I had in my business as a down payment, and started from the bottom again. But I had a piece of land. It's unheard of for the virtual wineries. That's what my bank calls us, virtual wineries, where you just have your inventory and that's it, and your sweat and the shirt on your back. And so it was really cool. And then my other neighbor had 40 acres for sale, and he said, I don't want the corporate up here and all the neighbors like you, so you want to buy this 40 acres. Only 20 was plantable, and I planted that, and now I'm done with that, planting vineyards and all that. It was a stretch for me doing that. Planting costs are through the roof, you can only imagine. And farming is very, very expensive. I can understand, sometimes it's more cost effective to buy grapes from vineyards. It's crazy how that could ever make sense, but sometimes it is. It's so expensive, but at the same time, it's so exciting.
I see the flexibility in buying fruit. How difficult it is to keep maintaining the contracts and consistency that you're looking for all the time.
It's difficult. Like have got my Larner, Whitehawk, Inesito. We're all on the same page on those vineyards. Even if we changed farming, which happens not so much at Inesito or like those vineyards will always be the same. But like I said earlier, every vineyard has a resume. And if I'm going to go into that vineyard, I need to see the resume and vineyard management, number one. And I use Kevin Wilkinson from Coastal Vineyard Services, sorry. And he's number one. And any vineyard he touches, I go in. If he says, oh, I have this vineyard, it makes it really easy because we're all on the same page and we all know the timing and we all know what we're after at the end. And then I don't have to go there as often. I don't have to make those tough calls or decisions or kind of remind people of what we're after. It's really hard when I do a lot of acre contracts. So it's really hard when I'm doing by the acre and they don't want to put their end of the bargain in. And it's like, hey, I'm paying you a certain price. You got to give me something. You have to put some work into it. So I do a lot of that, those hard conversations. They become easier and easier as I get older for some reason. But I just tell them, hey, I used to do the surprise visit. I don't do that. It's too hard on my stress. I usually tell them, hey, I'm going to be there Friday. Can you make sure that we've done shoot thinning? Perfect. Easy. And then, then there's a crew and I go there's a crew in there on Friday and I don't get to see what the finished work is, but at least they're attempting. So that whole side. That's what I do. A lot of the vineyard. I do all the vineyard contracts, all the stuff. And my assistant winemaker, Giovanni, he's been with me for 13 years. And then my cellar master, he's been with me for 14, 15 years. So we're all on the same page on the winemaking. I just need to bring the best ingredients I can. And the best eggs for the best omelets. So that's my main thing now. But I love the vineyard stuff.
Russell, I commend you for having, been able to buy some land and buy some vineyards and do that. But I always laugh. I go, those who go into this that are not already billionaires or corporations, right? Yes. And you're doing all the vineyard and all the winemaking and all the distribution and everything. I'm like, you guys are crazy. I'm like, it is so hard to take the risk, the business risk. And there's so many places along each of those things are different businesses and it's hard to do every one of them. And so I commend you for having vineyards of your own at all. But what I'm hearing from you is that you're also spending a lot of time managing where you have contracts and doing all of that. And it is a lot of work to make all that happen. And so, sometimes I'm like, those who are only doing the vineyards and selling the grapes probably have the easy side of it in some ways. It's a lot. And so thank you for being a little bit crazy enough to do this work and for us to enjoy.
You hit the nail on the head. That is a very important perspective. And I appreciate you seeing that because it is very difficult doing it all. I joke around saying I have a separate company called Herman Story Vineyard Management Inc. And it's dealing with all the vineyard managers, but it's unbelievable how I'll say my toughest competition is someone that's never going to run out of money. And somehow I can compete in that. And there's very few businesses that are like that. Very few where you're like, okay, somebody with a billionaire can be in the same wine shop selling their wine for the same price as I can. And it's like, wow, how does that happen? Well, the consumer forces us to live in that parameter. Luckily, they're not just, they buy what tastes good, and I go to the extreme limit of I spend as much as I can on the grapes and much as I can on the farming, and I can compete with that, which is rare. You know, if I'm making brake parts, somebody has more money, they're going to make a cheaper brake part, and I'm out of business. Or anything,
it's your livelihood versus your hobby.
Yeah, right. So I appreciate you understanding that perspective. It's mind blowing sometimes, and you know, luck. It takes time. You know, that's the other thing. I'll tell people who come into the winery and they're retiring, and they're retiring early at 55, and they say, "Oh, I want to start a winery." So I'll tell you what. I'll consult for you right now. Pay me $10,000, and I'll tell you what I'm going to. And I'll tell you, you don't even have to pay me. I'll just tell you what you need to hear. Go out, drink any bottle of wine that you want to, any day of the year, for the rest of your life. Never think about what it costs. Doesn't matter. You will be ahead financially. You will lose if you think you're coming into the wine business late in the game. It's just a time. It takes time. People, you know, like in Paso, people think, "Oh, I'm going to start a winery." You know, it's not just starting a winery. And if you're planting grapes, you're 5 years into it. Then you have 3 or 4 years of in barrel by the time you get it into bottle, and then you have this building your client, you building your following. It's a life thing. I've been in it 23 years, and it's still like, you know, it's still crazy how you know, you just can't stop. You always have to. Never enough customers, I'll say, and it's a lot of work, and I enjoy it. It's fun, still is. It's still, you know, when I always have something new. I'll have a new bottling or a new project. I'm always keeping something fresh. The vineyard, you know, we're on third leaf at our new place, and I could have taken, the vines were very vigorous, and I could have taken some fruit, but I dropped all the crop so that the vines can just spend their time establishing themselves and rooting. And it's way better for the year 5 and 6 and 7. And you get patient. You have to. I get patient. Like now, like when I was younger, and I was like, "When's the next vintage going to get in bottle? When? Oh, it's just not long." And I'm like, "When is this going to happen? It takes so long." And now it's just boom, 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 boom. Next vintage is on top of it. And I'll tell, like, I allow 5 of my employees to make their own wine in my place. And St. K, Ultima Thule, Manera, Lumina, and no, somebody gave me that opportunity. The Millers gave me an opportunity. I give it to my employees, and I'll help them out any way I can. And I tell them, they'll be like, "Oh, you know, this person wants to buy a whole pallet, but they want like 10% off." I say, "Hey, sell it to them. The next vintage is right behind you. Before you know it, you're going to have another vintage coming. So do it, you know, get your cash. You need the cash to pay for the grapes and the barrels and the next vintage." And it's just, it's a crazy business. It really is. You know, I could talk forever about how crazy it is and how much I'm against the ropes all the time. And then I battle back, and then I'm against the ropes and I battle back. And very close with my bankers. I've been with Farm Credit forever, and they help me out a lot. And I make another joke, is, "When did you learn all this stuff about this?" And I said, "When I started using my own money."
Yeah.
You get really smart quick, and so it's a crazy business, but I am very glad that I am in it, and that I have a great following. It's thrilling, and it's makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier to go for it, and makes it easier to say, "Oh, I'm going to go and I'm going to pay this extra." And I have some fruit, $18,000 an acre. I get 1.5 tons, 2 tons. That's 9,000 a ton, 10,000 a ton. And there's other stuff where I have little mom and pop vineyards where I'm paying 3,500, and I have to help them along and help them farm it. And I have all kinds of little deals and everything else to make what I'm making. But that's what keeps it interesting, keeps me going. So that's a
Well,
good.
since I started this group, Herman Story, the name comes up a lot, and that's who we tend to gravitate to bring into the members of this group. You mentioned
Well,
the
thank you.
we're always going to ask. So that means you're doing or should be doing very well. And, you know, I think the homage to you is that you have a very loyal fan base, and that's from what I can read. And I don't read everything, but there's not enough time in this world for that. But I know you have loyal followers, and you do something. You have a different approach, and that's where you build your fan base. But I do have one question, and we can wrap it up. It's getting late, especially if there's anybody east of the Rockies left. You said something about bankers. How much does the wine club base matter in the business? I've always been curious.
Huge.
Does it, huh?
Huge. It's huge.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I figure. There's such a pressure. I probably mischaracterized that. It seems like such a pressure to join the wine club. But for somebody like me, I buy from a lot of different wineries and I enjoy all the different wines. I don't want to be married to one in particular. I've gone through in the last, since 15, probably 3 cases of Herman Story. Probably. I looked at Cellar Tracker. But I buy it through I go to the winery or I call you guys and I order it, but I belong to the wine club and then I don't belong to the wine club. I'm just asking as a person who wants to understand the marketing side, how big is it when you're talking financially?
It's huge. It kind of gives me it gives me a projection of how much wine I can make, and it helps me forecast because I'm making the wines I just made in 2023. The barrel companies, I buy 220 barrels. They're $1,100-$1,200 a piece. You can do the math. It's very expensive. The fruit, and the vineyards want to get paid in 30, 60 days. And I'm sitting on it for 2 years. And it's really helps to have a steady buyer. And that's where the wine club really helps. If I didn't have as many wine club members, I wouldn't make as much wine. I make enough wine to try to get everybody enough. I'm always betting on myself, to tell you the truth. If you want the honest opinion or the honest, I'm always making a little bit too much because I'm always thinking, well, I'm gonna always sell more wine, and I've always sold a little more wine, and you are right. I have very loyal wine club members, and I think I attribute that to never sneaking anything by. Never like saying if it isn't good, I don't bottle it, and I don't try to sneak anything to them. And a lot of people don't want to get committed to a 6 or a certain curated list of wines because I know how some wine clubs work. I'm not in a lot of wine clubs, but I told you I drink a lot of Herman Story and Desperado and white Burgundy. So I see wine clubs are like, oh, yeah, just give it to the wine club. No. Give the best to the wine club and always give the best to the wine club and keep them because they are your bread and butter. They're the ones that are keeping you afloat. And so, and people ask me how many wine club members you have. I always say not enough. And I always try to get more. I would love, and the crazy thing is I have like 25, 26 distributors. I have some in Belgium, I have Denmark, I have Alaska, Hawaii, all over the country. And before I had any direct consumer, that's how I sold all my wine. And so the direct consumer is made my business flourish. And then I have to give some to my distributors because it helps me. If I make too much of one bottling, I can sell the rest to my distributor, and I have this way of keeping inventory disappearing. And so, but it's always it's this game, and it's not a game. It's always something I'm looking at. It's another thing, like the vineyards and everything. Another thing I look at all the time. All right, what am I making this much wine? And now I have, talk more business stuff. I have Molly, who's interned with me forever and was my wine club mate. And a lot of you have maybe talked to her via email and everything. Now she's doing more COO stuff. I've always been flying at the seat of my pants. I have enough money to buy more grapes, buy more grapes. I have enough money to buy more barrels, buy more barrels. I don't know my costing. I've never been able to really get in there and figure out what wines I should be making, what wines I'm losing my ass on, et cetera, et cetera. And now I have her like diving into this and getting my cost and seeing my margins and all of this stuff. And I'm growing up. I'm becoming a real business. And I've never really wanted, it takes money to invest in that kind of stuff. But it fine tunes it. I can't just fly by the seat of my pants and just sail with and just go. I have to get a hold of it and kind of, look at it all. And so,
well,
it
is competitive now. It is competitive when you have so many wineries. Yes. It is. You're competing for the palates, and it's
right.
It's competitive.
Right. And back in the day, it was, you're right. There wasn't a lot of us, and now people look at me and say, "Well, hey, this guy, he lives in town and has a winery next to a tire shop. Why can't I do that?" And you can. The opportunity is there, and it does become more competitive. And you just have to make better wine, I guess, or try to just stay. I was talking earlier about some wineries that have shifted and kind of made more of a somm wine or changed their style midstream, and I think that's the death, really, when you're making, or when you change winemakers all the time. Nothing against William Salem, for instance, and that they used to be big ripe, and then they sometimes aren't ripe and they're more Burgundian, and then they get a ripe winemaker and then they go Burgundian. It's like, how is the consumer supposed to know? And for me, I think everyone knows that they're going to get the same thing. It's going to be big, ripe, round, and rich, and that's what I like. And so I'm going to continue that. And I'll tell you, 2023 is the vintage we're just coming off of. Like I was talking about it earlier, and the gifts happen to those that wait, and the quality and the color and the intensity of the wines. And my poor wife was telling me mid-October, I was saying, if it rains, I am completely screwed. If the weather turns, and everybody was saying it was going to, and I was nervous. I was like, oh man, I was dropping crop. I was dropping grapes in October to try to ripen what I had and to make sure that I could get it ripe. And just another brick of sugar, and to sacrifice all those grapes on the ground just to get there. Good night, Philadelphia. Somebody from Philadelphia. Wow, that's dedication. Appreciate it.
Really? There's still somebody on here from Philly.
And somebody from Houston. Houston was saying,
oh, Jacob Flag. Okay. Hey, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm here in Delaware.
Oh, Delaware.
Well, so I did appreciate your comments. And Jacob Flagg is my son. And now that I live in Delaware, my wine gets shipped to his house because this is one of the 3 states in the US wineries cannot ship to.
Oh, yeah.
So Mississippi, Utah, and Delaware, no direct ship. I could ship if I'm on present. You could ship to me if I'm on site and order there, but not part of the club. So, and
Alabama ain't no better.
Say that again.
I said Alabama ain't no better. I had to have some Drescher wine shipped to Tennessee so I could get it to me.
You know, it's
Hey,
and
Hoyt.
it's hard because we're a tax-free state, so I want it to come here.
Right. Yeah. Well, we have a lot of licenses in states, and then we have packaging that looks like grandma's cookies. So if you're really desperate, you just email us, and
I'll call Jacob. So we share.
hopefully
We share, and
no one
and
with
you
the
know, it's funny
TTB
'cause-
is on this, but
All right.
if you're really having trouble, we have ways. I said when DHL, not to get off the subject here, but DHL, they're all international, and they did domestic for a hot minute, for like 2-3 years. And I said, man, these people would ship a dead body, no questions asked. It didn't matter whatever it was. And I would drop it off at DHL and just, run. And but they get FedEx. There's a few states now. FedEx, the state can just ask for an approved alcohol shipper. Any approved alcohol shipper shipped to the state, and I'll see the manifest come, and I get yelled at. But I have ways.
Oh, you know what? I go to Rehoboth, I go to Love's Liquors, I go to Bin 66. They all carry your stuff. And when Jacob was here recently, we went into, I think we were in Love's Liquors, and we bought some Desperado also, and then we joined that one.
Oh yeah,
we clearly like all your wines.
And some St. A as well, so we're well rounded.
Awesome.
We are. Oh, you're still on, and we finished Thanksgiving with the 419. That was delicious.
My buddy Tim Polnacki sent me over to you, and we haven't looked back since. So it's been fun.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I have lots of good stuff up in the pipeline right now. We did all the 22s, which is a little tougher vintage, but it actually turned out they're pretty good. And then 23 is I think going to be one for the books. I never would have thought. Like I said, my wife was like, I'm tired of hearing the crying, and it'll be fine. And I have a restaurant. My best friend is a restaurateur here in town, and he was telling me, hey, dude, every time you say this, you start crying about it, and then you always come back and you go, oh, it's the best vintage ever. And 2023 is a sleeper. It's really good.
Well, know what? Much to your wine club thing, you don't sell a lot of library wine, do you? Do you have a lot of library wine available?
I did, and I started doing through the COVID. I started doing the library releases because I'll take a layer when we bottle. I'll take a layer of certain wines that we're not going to sell every single. Like sometimes I'm just going to sell every bottle or oversell some things, but things that we have more quantity of, I'll lay a layer in a pallet, and then we'll layer another layer of some other wine that we have, and then we'll just wrap it up and we'll put it in the back of the warehouse and forget about it. And I started thinking, what am I going to do with all these? And then when COVID happened, I started doing a lot of the library releases, and I pretty much cleaned out. I've kept a couple of them. Normally around the holidays, I just did a 3-pack of some library stuff, but I always, I have my own library, and I have a lot of, I try to keep 3 or 4 or 5 cases of everything, and then it starts to get pilfered. People will ask me for stuff, but if there's anything that you're wanting, or if you're missing one in a vertical of something, just hit me up. I've got stuff.
Library wines are for old farts like Craig and I. They go, I don't want to hang on to it for 10 years. We don't know what 10 years is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, to go back to the business side, my lowest margin wine, I can tell you, is late bloomer, because it stays in barrel for 4 years. And my accountant's like, hey, it's killing you. This is no margin in this wine. But because it has to, it has to stay at 57 degrees for 4 years. Well, that cost, now see, I'm doing all this cost. Don't get me on the costing. That's my new thing.
And the square footage and all that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to spread it all out over the bottle and And so, but it's, Grenache is the one variety that loves time in barrel. It can't get enough. Cab dries out. Pinot can't do it. Whites not so much. Tempranillo, I'd rather the milk and honey. I make that Tempranillo. That's 18 months, and that's where it tastes good. And I go to Rioja. I think, wow, they should bottle this earlier instead of 3 years or whatever. But that's tradition there. And so, but in Paso, Tempranillo tastes really good at like 18 months. So that comes out in the spring. And
But much to explain, like 440 days.
right.
It was 440 days on the stems,
Yes.
on the skin, but then how much more time do you add to it?
Then it goes into bottle. It goes into barrel for 6 months and about 50% new French oak in the regular.
Right.
And then I bottle it. And it's back then I didn't even know margin. What was margin? What's costing? All that. Just go for it.
Yeah, because it's an art.
Yeah, it was really fun to do that project. And people ask about that wine more than any other wine, and that whole series and everything. And it was fun, and nobody has ever done that. I don't know of anyone in the world. I'm talking world wine. No one goes that long. You know, maybe 30 days or extended or 60.
We had a 426 and a 444. You didn't get to taste it, but I was so fascinated by the concept. I go, oh, this has got to be great. And great winemaker, great vineyard. Oh, it's got to be good. So we just bought it. We didn't need to taste it. It's faith in you and the fruit.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun making those. It was, and now, it's the new thing is the Italian wine. I really like that. If you haven't had the Made, that's one to grab.
Yeah,
I
love the name, Russell. Made. When I looked at it, I was going, okay, now I get it. Yeah,
I have to explain that to people. It's like a gangster. Once you're made, you're untouchable. You know?
Right. That's right. It's a quickie. You just have to understand. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Hey, Russell,
have any other questions?
No, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna go back 5 minutes, Rhonda. All I'm hearing from you is that you need to get your distributor license in Delaware to fix your problems. That's what I'm hearing. So,
Oh, I just retired, so maybe that's a good thing for me.
see, you have plenty of time to do all the freaking long paperwork and all that stuff.
Yes.
Oh, that's definitely not my thing. But Russell, any more 419 left?
I got one right here.
There's one. Craig's house.
Craig's house. None left for purchase.
I don't know. If you shoot me an email or shoot us an email, I can look. We have magnums, maybe.
Magnum? You have magnums with that?
Yeah. I don't tell people I have a lot of magnums. I keep those, but I do. I actually have a magnum club. I do a few magnums here and there. It's kind of I offer that club every once in a while when I have enough magnums, but we have to do those by hand. We have to put them one into the bottler, and so it takes forever. So I don't make too many, but nothing parties like a magnum, I always say. But hit me up. I think the 426 might be absolutely done. But I might have 419, 440, a little bit of those.
How good is it? 419. It's a 2015. Should I open it up soon?
Oh my God! Yeah, tonight. Start drinking it now.
Yeah, right. I haven't had it right now. And Craig, if you shoot me an email, if you shoot me an email, and I'll try one, and I'll let you know. But those are they're crazy, the texture and the spice in them. And I've had the 440 of recent. The 426 was unbelievable. I thought last time I had it, but
I drank that one in 2019.
Yeah, 426 was really
December of 2019.
I'm amazed you can remember when you drank
Just,
it.
I took and pair this with.
Cigars or just hanging out.
You know what? I told my wife a long time ago, she loves cigars. And I said, honey, I'm not going to kiss you anymore if you keep smoking those cigars and drinking that stuff, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. At Christmas time, Christmas cookies and 419, any of those. That's how I you know, the spice and the fineness of it is really cool. And it's a lot of my wine. Like I make a petite sirah, first time caller. People ask me, what do I pair with this? I said, football on Sunday, just drink it. Who cares? A burger. You know, some wines don't need to have a wine or food to exactly pair with it. You just drink them, you just try them, and that's the fun part, you know.
Hey, Dave, do you have something to say? Oh, okay. I agree. You said something early in the whole that struck me is like, it's about drinking the wine. I know the Chapmans are big on pairing. It's like, let's go have this dinner. We're going to make a dinner. We're going to have this bottle of wine. By the time dinner comes around, we already drank that.
Right.
It's more about drinking the wine and just enjoying it in its own. I love pairing and I like the enjoyment of it, but
Right.
if it's not good standing alone by itself,
Right.
and I've had wines and I go, boy, that's really over tannic. But I'll bet you it's really good with a ribeye. You know, I'm going, yeah, that was meant to drink with food, but I understand other wines. I just want to just enjoy them like somebody would enjoy a cigar or a bourbon or anything else.
Right. At the end of the day, drink what you want to drink and eat what you want to eat, and
Right.
You'll be happy.
I just think that the wine just with the food just elevates the experience, you know. So Mike's perfect example. So he did something, took care of Debbie and me. We went up with him some wine tasting. So in return, I gave him an expensive bottle of a Honada, has this Syrah.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And the guy sits there and he's watching television, drinking this bottle of wine by itself. And for me, I'm thinking, you're out of your freaking mind. You know, I'm expecting you and your wife to either take it to a nice restaurant or cook something. You know, you just don't spend that kind of money and just drink it by itself. But you know, to each their own. I mean, that's one thing.
That's incorrect. That's incorrect. He's wrong. It's on its own. It was great.
Right.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, Mike.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Hey, there's nothing like champagne and fried chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Yep.
Well, that's a whole different combo.
Yeah. So if you actually see me post this 419 and a picture of Chick-fil-A next to it, then
I would go with the spicy extra pickles.
All right. Well, we probably should let Russell go. Man, you're about an hour and a half over your limit.
Hey,
else had something they want to add. It's getting late.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing you on the 21st, Russell. We'll be down
Yeah,
there.
we're going to be down there. We're going to be there, Russell.
Yeah.
All right. Packed house. I love that.
Yeah. For once in a while, when Paso comes to us, we're all in.
Yep.
You got it. Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks for having me.
Have something to say? Thank you so much. You were a wonderful guest. Really.
Thank you.
Really great.
Anytime you want to do it again, you hit me up. I love the talk about wine and get and tell people the behind the scenes. It's fun. It's gives you a different perspective, being a consumer and hearing all the stuff that happens in the back, you know, and all the other things. And I'm an open book. You ever have any questions or anything? just email me or email us. We have the same every email. If you send an email to our company and say, hey, I had Russell in the Zoom, can you pass this to him or whatever? We look at the same thing. It's Thirsty at Herman Story or Russell at Herman Story Wines. And I'll get back to you and yeah, stay in touch.
We've got a lot of episodes under our belt, and you've been a very compelling guest. I can tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and have a wonderful and safe holidays.
Yes.
Thank you.
Amen. All righty. Take care.
Take care, Russell. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.